Okay, it's been a few weeks, but time to get back to this 924 turbo, reinstalling the engine. And let me just show you where I'm at this time. I did a little work underneath here. Didn't video it, but finished up on the exhaust. So joined the tailpipe with the muffler, got that bracket back on. These rubber mounts, I'd actually purchased those years ago when I first got this car. One of them had already failed, but I used some contact cement to kind of join it together. It failed right there at the top of the bushing, and it's like a big washer that mounts it, but that seems to be holding. And also the weight presses down, so that's helpful. So got all that together, put the CV axles back on. Oh, there it is. Excuse me, this is what I've been looking for. It's hanging right there. So this is the bracket that holds the accumulator, which I just have a wire tie around. So that's great. Well, I'll clean that up this morning and put that back on. By the way, I busted the cover lens on my phone camera, so some of this stuff might be a little bit blurry. So, okay, that's a project. Also, I tested both fuel pumps, because I got the original in-tank pump. Well, it's not original. I replaced it years ago. That was not cheap. I don't even know you can still get them. And then I also tested the external pump, just using a 12-volt battery. So both pumps work. I got the fuel lines back on. So that's kind of where I'm at. And let me get this accumulator secure, and we'll go into the engine compartment. Okay, accumulator's mounted. Note these rubber bushings. First I cleaned up the bracket with a wire brush, then I treated those with Armor All and put a heat gun on them for a little while. It's a little cold out here in the shop today, but these things, when they're cold and brittle, they just disintegrate. So anytime I can kind of help them along, I will. This is another example of over-engineered mounting. I had to consult the parts diagram to figure it out. I mean, basically you got a band clamp holding it onto this bracket, which in turn is mounted to another bracket on the chassis, which is kind of ridiculous. So I'm buttoning things up underneath as much as I can get to. I got the starter back in, actually found the bolts for that. I also put in the O2 sensor. So I'm gonna keep looking around for loose items, hoses, while I'm under here, and try to get as much of this done underneath as possible. I think the next thing is to get the fuel distributor mounted and start working on the front of the engine here. So early this year, I had a super nice guy who had built a 931 who had an extra one of these bellow hoses for the goes from the air plenum into the turbo. This is the one that came off the car. It's got a lot of cracks. It might be salvageable. I'm not going to discard it, but obviously this one is much better shape. So I was very fortunate because these are no longer available. All right, I think I got this figured out. So the bellows obviously fits onto here, goes down to the turbo, we're looking at it in the proper orientation. This is the mount. However, I've got a problem here. I've got 2 of those rubber bushings are busted. I'm going to need to order new bushings. So that's a $27 part. And then I believe this mounts to the frame. So everything's going to come to a screeching halt again while I get new parts. But I can clean this up. You know, I was thinking about having it rebuilt, but I found out the owner of Special T has passed away. Talked to a guy with a DeLorean out at a car show. He rebuilt these. I've seen videos on rebuilding specifically the fuel distributor. I think the air intake itself, all this is pretty straightforward. However, the I don't know the technical term for this. This presses on a needle valve, for lack of a better word, that triggers all this CIS injection. So yeah, I think the first step is to get the bushings, get the bracket mounted back on the frame, and it's always something, guys. Okay, I'm the back of the engine now, hooking up these heater hoses, and this one that comes out of the firewall, it makes that curl right there in the middle of the frame. That one lined up, was like sitting there ready to go. So no problem IDing that. And then the other hose you can see beside it there runs over the bell housing. And then let's see if I can get it to focus down in there. Yeah, so that's where your heater on-off valve goes. You can see the cable there with that pulls it. And so this guy here, and it's got a tab on there. You need to figure out where that tab mounts, and then I can, but actually the thing I want to do first, see that hole right there? That's where the ignition, the flywheel sensor goes, which I've got it right here. Now that's the one that's like unobtainium, so I'm going to be super careful getting that back in place, but I need to do that first before I put that heater control valve in. So I got the sensor in. I warmed it up, and the lead, the cable also, with the heat gun, because like I said, a little chilly, and I don't want that jacket fracturing or anything. So now you can see the 2 hoses for the heater control valve. So get that in there and get those band clamps tightened up. Okay, I got that in there. That one hose in the back is sort of like dealing with a wet noodle. And I think I have it on upside down. I didn't even put the cable in it. I'm just going to manually open and close it for now. So I think that's everything at the back of the engine for now. So we'll move on to something else. Well, there's one other. There's a vacuum hose that goes on the thermotime. You can see it by the 2 terminals. So you have a sensor and then a vacuum. I don't know if it's, yeah, it's a switch. So I had this hose marked here, thermo. So that vacuum hose goes from where? Oh, God. Oh, comes all the way around from here by the brake booster. So, yeah, that goes to that thermo assembly under there. So I had to take the heater hose, the one that was so easy to get off to get to that thermotime valve. It's two vacuum hoses, one of which we just found goes up to a diaphragm by the brake booster, and then the other one, I have it labeled as A, so it's these ports on the throttle body, and I got to figure out which one's which. I think A I meant is the front one and B is the back. So anyway, you want to do that with the engine out of the car. You talk about two wet noodles. Jeez. Your friend, the tool you want to use is this, because it's super tight. And then back here behind the distributor, I found this vacuum hose. I don't know if I cut that. It's a hard line, or was there another T in there? The hard line goes into the firewall. You can see it right there on the left-hand side of the frame. So let me look into that. I mean, if I cut it, I can just join it together with some more silicone hose. But unknown right now. Okay, got that fixed. I've got another hose set that is related to all this. So this is the second hose off the thermotime. So it's really only long enough to go to the front port on the throttle body. But note that the sealing gasket is prevents you from getting it on there. I'm gonna have to take the snorkel off, but I was gonna have to do that anyway to put the valve gaskets on and everything, valve cover gaskets. So there you go. One step forward, two steps back. Then I have this T with ends labeled vacuum limiter, cold start, and then B. B is the other port on the throttle body. So I'm going to route all that stuff in there. Okay, so I got that Y vacuum cable routed, and then went ahead and plugged up the harness, engine harness. There was a ground, series of grounds that I'm pretty sure it goes up top there. So that should be in order. And I guess next, put on the alternator. Why not? Okay, I got the alternator on. After trying about 50,000 different setups on these bushings, and there's only one setup that really works right. But where I'm really hitting a stumbling point, now I took the timing belt cover back off. I've got this hose here, and I believe that's an oil supply off the oil filter. And I need to go ahead and connect whatever connects to that. I've got a couple of hard lines that I'm struggling to find out where they go. Got this one. I know this is a crossover on the water pipe, so that'll happen later. But this hard line, it's either oil, actually maybe vacuum. It just doesn't look that oily. Also, coming off the brake booster from this Y, I have two that are just marked hard tube. This one and this one. So I've got one here and one here. So that may be the correct, because this is definitely vacuum hose. So I suspect those are the two spots that goes. And then this hose from the canister, evap canister, it goes to the air box, which makes sense. So anyway, especially if anybody knows about that one, please leave a comment, because I really need to get something onto there before I get too far. Okay, so I got the AC compressor installed, got the hoses hooked up, put new O-rings on those, belts are on, think everything is tight on the alternator and the AC compressor. So yeah, I'm getting to the point where I really got to find out what attaches to that. The air box and the fuel distributor obviously have hoses associated with them, but kind of is what it is at this point. And yeah, if anybody knows exactly what I'm hooking up there, it'd be a huge help to let me know. Also, the hard pipe that joins either end of this. I think it's two different hard pipes. It couldn't be one, because it'd just be making a circle. That doesn't make any sense. So that's where I'm at. Thanks for watching, and we'll keep plugging.